You doing,
My
bro?
good brother. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. I'm using my little thing here. Look, we made it.
Yeah. Let's get a
I'm
little
proud. I
let's
made
get a
it, man. We're here,
audience
bro.
going.
It's fun
Awesome,
today.
man. That studio that you got there, man. That's quite a setup. Huh?
This is my world, man. Here's the thing. When everything hit, I had a buddy who he's like a 2.6 million subscriber on YouTube guy. He's like, hey, bro, your backdrop. He's like, it's your office. He's like, it's cool. You can keep your office. He's like, but if you're about to like, get into YouTube stuff, which is his perspective, but also he's like, if you're gonna hold a world online, he's like, you got to make sure it's got to be a set. It has to be like it's
Mm.
created for what you're doing. Have intentionality. So it's like, all right, and I put about $3,000 into just making the damn thing look nice, right? And then I did all myself in about 8 hours. I got everything here, and then just one fell swoop, hooked it all up, and it works. It looks good. I like it.
God, man. No, it looks awesome, man. That's something that we're gonna be doing hopefully first quarter 2021. So we finally are at the point where we're doing the podcast, both audio and visual. So it is going up on YouTube.
Yeah.
But as you say, I just got my office behind me,
It looks good. It's not bad though. You know what? Here's what you do. Here's a special match. Those of you people at home, like, how do I do it? Have a cool set. You got to get a DSLR camera, mirrorless. You get what's called an HDMI capture card, and you set yourself away from the backdrop. And you get a light. You just have some lighting. I've got one light. That's all I need is one light, and it creates an epic kind of feel. And
mm,
then you have what's called a good lens to get bokeh, like it's blurred back there. That's I
yeah.
mean that's only it's only like 6 feet, maybe 6, 7 feet from my head, right? But because of the lens and I'm closer to camera, it makes it look
It gives that depth perception. Yeah.
all you need,
No.
man. You get a little bit of depth and it's special, bro. You could do it in the space you're at right now, make it look all sexy, be no problems. You make it look dope.
Awesome, man. Well, I got everything I need out of this podcast.
There you
how
go.
to
All right,
set how
hit
to
it
set
up.
the studio up.
See you guys.
um, no, but like I was telling you, man, when we were chatting a bit, I'm really fired up to just dive into your story and the work that you're doing. And I think we're very parallel in kind of what we're teaching and the people that we're helping.
Yeah.
Um, and I think where we start, it's funny because I've said this, let's go back to the beginning with a lot of our guests. When you get these people that kind of had transformational stories, it's always great to kind of go back to the beginning. For some people, the beginning is maybe in high school, or some people, the beginning is, in their 20s. And for you, the beginning of your story is literally the beginning. I've heard you talk about multiple times,
Yeah.
the first memory you have in life. So I think really where we can go is let's go all the way back to little Anthony and kind of just unpack a little bit of your experience, like you
Yeah.
said, that has led you. And then in doing that, I think we'll get a lot of value in really helping people shift their identities. And I got some things I definitely want to get to. But I think the first half, it's let's just kind of unpack that
Let's do
experience.
it.
Take
Let's
us
unpack it.
all the way back to the
All the
beginning.
way back in the time. We're gonna go and Marty McFly this bad boy, baby. Yeah. So years ago, back was it 1986? I was 3 years old. My real mom, ended up deciding that she didn't want kids anymore. So me and my three siblings got put into a system where man, it was just I don't think that she knew what she was doing, man. And she put us into a really tough, difficult situation in the foster care world that we were what's called a paycheck for people. As long as we didn't die and they got paid for us to be there, they did what they did. And there wasn't social media, there was no reporting, and we're little kids, so things that are happening to us, if you tell the social worker assumes you're lying because you want to go back to your mom and dad. And so things didn't get grabbed and paid attention to, and so it was a very difficult, heinous environment and system that I was experiencing at a young age. So I started from 3 to 6 years old, bouncing around from house to house, 6 houses, and man, they treated you really bad. Some houses worse than others, but I mean, like beatings and starvation and weird torture things, and just, man, yeah, some things where some people were troubled. Best way to
Mhm.
explain it, some people were troubled human beings, and unfortunately, I had to be in their care. And if they didn't take care of their world, they definitely didn't take care of mine. And so, yeah, I just bounced around. I ended up at 6 years old in a family, which actually is a better family, but our own dysfunction because life has dysfunction. But only black person, an all white family, very poor. First foster dad in that house was a drunk. He used to beat my mom and beat me, and then eventually she divorced him and she remarried another guy, only 12 years older than me. So very interesting dynamic there.
And this is
And we
at
all kind of
6 years old.
this was, I think he came into the picture when I might have been like 9 or 10.
Okay.
Yeah, because when he came in, he was only 20 years old when he came in with my mom. So it would have been, I was 8, a couple years in. So I was 8 years old. He came in, and he was dad. He's been dad, man. He's just, he's an interesting guy. good dude, welder, pipe fitter. He's like a Homer in real life, not like dumb in a sense, but like just physically looking at him. He's short, chubby little guy, but he's just he's a dude. He's a guy trying to do his best to figure things out. He's coming into a household where there's 4 kids. He had 2 more, and it wasn't like we were rolling in dough, man. But life got better in a sense of like he got a better job, and my mom ended up kind of going to school to become a nurse, and so things got a little bit better. It was interesting because I wasn't adopted yet. I wasn't adopted until I was 14. I spent 11 years in the system. And so when I was 14, you got to realize every day leading up to the day I got adopted, it could be taken away. So you don't want it to get better. Because if it gets better and it gets torn away, it sucks even more. So like you kind of are fighting this embracement. Like you don't really embrace it because like I don't want that because somebody might take this pie. Don't give me the pie. And then eventually got adopted and they got better in terms of stability. But still, man, up and down, back and forth. My world is one of a ton of turmoil. I got bathed in crazy at a young age. And when you're bathed in that crazy, crazy becomes norm. You can navigate it so much easier. And one of the things that I appreciate about the time, I wouldn't say I like, because liking is mean like I really enjoyed it. Did not enjoy it, man. Appreciation means I understand it and I appreciate what it was. And what it was is I learned that a smooth sea makes not a skilled sailor. A sea that's rough and crazy, and you navigate it and learn how to, like you get a chance to understand how to navigate rough seas. And if you don't, then the first time you're in a storm, your boat capsizes, you freak out and you drown, right? So for me, going through that at a young age, it allowed me to progress into the later stages of my life and be able to handle hardships far better than most people do. It takes a whole hell of a lot to get me to a tipping point, like more than logically makes sense for people. People like, how in the world are you not freaking out? And I'm like, well, in the storms of life at this point in my life, there's things going on. And like even COVID, for example, things go crazy around me and I'm not better. I haven't, it's not like a more successful thing that has anything to do with it, but it's like, all right, well, I've had crazy. I've navigated things that have changed without me wanting them to change. I know what it emotionally feels like. I can take control of myself. I'm not spun up in a ball. And so where we're both on this crazy sea right now, and the ocean's rocking and rolling, you're batting the hatches down, you're freaking out, you're tucked in the corner shivering. I'm up here sipping tea and dancing, bro. Like I'm, doing my thing. Like because I realize when the storm breaks, we're gonna be good. So I'm not gonna tuck away and waste, this amazing sunset or the experience of what I can learn or understanding how to keep this boat from tipping. There's different skills you learn, and then it does 2 things. One, it allows you to come out smarter and better, and then 2, it allows you to be really, really hopeful and ambitious. And I think the reason some people aren't ambitious enough is because they fear so greatly the storms, so they don't enter them. And so because you're not entering storms, you're not finding new opportunities, and your life becomes a stagnation. And yeah, it sucks when you see everybody else winning. They're not winning because they have something better. They're just winning because they chose to do something better with their time and chose a better way of handling moments.
Wow, that's incredible. I want to kind of speed up here to kind of current because in everything that you're saying here, like all this trauma and bouncing around from house to house and abuse and all this has really shaped your perspective. You as a father now,
Yeah.
you have three kids, correct?
Tres bebés.
Tres children's. So with your children, because obviously, I mean, you've built this, extremely successful life. I mean, from the NFL and multiple, 7-figure businesses with the gym and all the coaching and consulting work you do, you've worked very hard to be able to provide this incredible life for your kids. How do you ensure that they're getting that adversity when they're growing up with, I mean, everything that it could potentially have? Like, how do you ensure that they're going to make it through those hard times?
I mean, I'm the ship's captain. There, I'm like the ensign behind their ship, and that's kind of the best way to explain it. Because the funny thing is, I learned to navigate the ship by myself. I was just me, and to figure it out. And it's like when you're running around, you can try things out, and some people just don't try enough. They give up too quick. I just didn't give up, man. I figured out I'm gonna, and it's not like I'm destined and determined to not give up. It's just like what's the other option? Giving up. The other option of giving up is a sucky life, and it's like, yeah, even if my hard work doesn't guarantee that I'm going to have success, at least it gives me a better chance than giving up and being lazy. So I navigated the ship by myself. However, with my children, It is kind of a tough thing because they don't have the gumption I have. I know that. And it's not, I don't knock them and be like, you suck because you don't have the toughness. I call them soft. I let them know, like, hey, bro, you're soft. I want him to be aware of what he is. I'm not going to pump him up and send him into the world with him thinking he's great. And then all of a sudden he's like, my dad said I'm great. And why am I, let's be real, bro. You're soft. But it's okay. I tell him, because look, the reason you're soft is because I gave you a great life. That's what I wanted for you. Now, you don't have to do the ship navigating alone. It's different. Like, you have me, you have your mom, you have your family, you have our friends. So we've built a life around you. We've built a community around you that when the ship starts going crazy, you're not on that deck alone. And so even if you don't understand how to do it, you're going to get those bypass osmosis lessons because we're going to be here to show you. So yeah, go out and do your thing and don't freak out. Maybe you don't got to navigate rough seas, but when it gets to the point of you get to your rocky storms and you got, a relationship falling apart, or your first job sucks, or, you have a heartbreak, whatever it is, like you're not in the storm alone, my man or my daughter. Like, you're going to be okay. And we're going to be here to help you out. And so, yeah, I do want them to realize that I want to make their life a little bit easier, but I do also purposely make stuff hard. They also, like, where I can make it hard without putting them at risk, I do. Like, conversations they don't want to have. Like, my son, for example, he doesn't like talking to other people, like humans, like adults. I talk to kids, and I'm like, for example, booking a haircut. He won't call the barber and book a haircut. And one time I was like, hey, call Jamar or Barber, schedule a haircut. What do I say? How do I say? But I don't give a crap what you say. Here's the phone number. Call him. How do I? Oh. And I made him get in the phone and figure it out. And after a while, like, he's like, oh, it's not so bad. Like, yeah, it's not so bad, bro. Quit acting all spooky, bro. It's just talk to people. But those are his little battles. That's his little thing, right? So it's just putting the kids in positions to learn skills, and just put him in position becomes enough of a rocky storm for them.
That's incredible. And it's so funny that you talked about your son in that way, because I was telling you before we hit record, that was me. I was a kid that didn't want to talk to anybody. And it was through, getting into Toastmasters and forcing myself to turn the camera on, knowing that I'm going to stutter and I'm going to dance and I'm going to look like an idiot. Like, you go back to my first, couple hundred, or probably my first 50 videos on YouTube. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. I was eyeing all over the place, filler words, this, that. But now it's like, you put me in front of an audience or on the camera, like, this is my zone. This is where I thrive. So it's like facing those challenges and facing what we feel or we're scared of doing, like, on the other side is where your greatness is really, really unlocked and unfolded. So I want to go deeper here on some of your experience and some of the journey that led you here, because, if we just went from foster care, bounced around from home to home, to today, what you're doing, that in of itself would be an amazing, amazing story. But there's a whole section there with the NFL and some early struggles with your business and navigating through that. So can you kind of take us, so adopted at 14, you shared with me offline before we started recording that you were, meant to be a football player, and that's led you, obviously that's not what you're doing now. No. So where did sports make their way? Take us through, that first visit with Washington. I know there's an amazing part of your story there with the quarterback. I definitely want to make sure we get that part.
Yeah, maybe there's a lot of stuff in my story. I forget about parts of my story. There's so many segments of my life that, like, every single year could be a genuine keynote of random crazy.
Well, it's crazy because as I was researching you, it's like every layer, I'm like, really? That too? It's like this movie that, like, never ends. It's like, how is this guy, like, even still here?
I don't know, man. It's weird. It's weird, and I don't even say it with, like, yeah, it's weird, like I'm being humble. I'm genuinely serious. Like, telling you, like, bro, it's hella weird. My life is an awkward collection of moments that are like, I did that. Yeah, I did do that. So
it makes, like, it really would be an amazing year, or like a 5-part Netflix series or something, because it's a thing that just never ends.
It's still going, and I'm not even halfway through my life. I don't think. I think we got. Anyways, yeah. Well, so years ago, I was sucky at football, and I'd figure out football. And there's a story behind how I did, but essentially, like, football became this thing that I loved but wasn't very good at. Like most things, when somebody tries to do something new, and I figured out that I needed to do some things past the comfort zone to get great. And I did, man. I did those things. I sold out in terms of effort and hard work and showing up when I didn't feel like showing up. And it turned into me getting a college football scholarship and playing football at the University of Oregon and having a kid at 20 years old and meeting my real dad, my very first collegiate start where I got a game ball and all this fun stuff. And it was interesting. Before all of this, I didn't have, much of a base of comfort in who I was, right? I didn't really have a thing that made me me. And there was this guy across town in a school called Deer Valley. I went to Antioch High, named Chris Hurd. He's not a big part of the story, but he's enough of a part of the story to set a tone for who I was going to be later on. And what happened was he went to Washington State on a scholarship as a quarterback. And he'd come home to the Bay Area and he was like asking his coaches, hey, any local guys can catch a football, throw it around? Someone put my name out there. I was like, yeah, I'll go throw the ball with the guy, So we go out to Piedmont High School and throw the ball around. And he's like, dude, like, you're pretty good at this. Like, you could actually play at a higher level. I'm like, I'd be cool, maybe. I at this time not been contacted by colleges, nothing special. And then we went and had a hot dog down in Berkeley somewhere, remember? And then anyway, so we disappear. He goes and tells his coaches about me. They look into me. And they're like, hey, the kid's pretty good. Let's, take a look at him. And so they put a little thing out and sent me down a little, hey, come take a trip. And so I took a visit. And what's interesting, when you take a visit, it goes out in the wire kind of thing where every school knows you brought somebody in. So other colleges can be like, who's this kid's name? I don't know this kid's name. And so what ended up happening was I go to Washington State, love the place. I'm like, I'm going to Washington State. And in doing so, all of those schools are like, who's this guy going to Washington State? So now I get these letters rolling in. I mean, I get all the Pac-10. I'm getting Michigan, Nebraska. I set up these, trips, these official visits to go to these schools and check them out. And I ended up like, I'm going to go to Washington State, no big deal. And here's how everything transpired in the moment that turned Washington State into the place I wanted to go. I went there for a visit. In this visit, Chris Hurd is there. And I got stuck with this guy named Marty Martin, who's a receiver there because I was going to be a receiver. And he walks out. He's like my host, they call it. So we go to this party, and I don't think he was the one that put me in front of it. Somebody was like, hey, come on back here. And they took me in this back room. And there's a couple girls lined up against the wall. And it wasn't like lined up like livestock, but they're kind of sitting over in the corner. He's like, hey, pick one. And it was interesting because now at this time I had a girlfriend, which is now my wife, high school sweetheart, still together, had a divorce hiatus and got back together. One of those parts of the story. And
we're gonna get there.
We'll get there. And so, we have this thing, and it's funny. It's like, I'm like, I don't want to cheat on my girl. Like, that's not being in foster care, the connection to a woman in my life. Like, that was big because my mom was the one that I had this. And so with women, there's a weird depth of connection. I didn't know what to do. And out of nowhere, here comes Chris Hurd. I didn't even seen him the whole time. Like, and he just comes out. He's like, hey, Aunt, man, what you up to? I was like, I don't know. And like came out of the left of a room like an angel. It's hella weird. And he's like, hey, you want to get out of here? I'm like, yeah, let's go. And so he takes me out to Washington State Stadium. He had a key or an access code because he was a quarterback and he just go throw the ball and everything. And good dude. And we go to the top of the bleachers on the opposite side. I think it was the away side. And he's like, hey, man. Oh, no, it was a home side. He goes, hey, man. He goes, how are you with faith, man? I was like, oh, well, we kind of have, this family that we believe in. I think we believe in God. I think it's what we do. And he's like, well, you're about to go into this world in college when you get a scholarship. And he's like, it's going to be a different dynamic. If you don't have a solid base, man, it's going to be, you can get lost on a win. A lot of guys do. He's like, I should, kind of get right with faith. It's like kind of discussion about it. And that was it. And then a day later, I end up, going out to back home, and they fly you back home and they get you a little taxi to take you to wherever you got to go. And so the taxi guy, get out of the airport. I walk out the pickup spot. My name's on this little placard, and there's a guy. This burgundy van. He's got these, this short brown hair, olive skin, just regular clothes, and some jeans and a shirt. He gets in. The dude looks like Jesus, and I know that it sounds. You're gonna hear it and be like, "Nah, he made that up." But I'm telling you, depths of my heart, the dude looked like Jesus. And he gets in the car. The very first thing he says is, "Hey, are you saved?" That was it. That was the first question. I'm like, and I tell him, like, it's really weird that you say that, because in the seat behind the front seat, like leaning in the middle, I'm like, it's weird that you asked that. I've never really had it asked, and I've had it twice in the last couple of days. And he goes, do you mind if I kind of share my testimony? And he did, and shared his testimony the whole hour and a half, back to my house in Antioch. And we got to this street, which is right above, was it Ashley Court or whatever it was, or Ashley Street, and says, hey, do you want to pray and accept Christ into your life? I was like, yeah. So we did. And that was the start of an interesting journey internally of like, who is Anthony? How's he going to show up? And I've had my times that I'm close, had my times I'm away. But that was the anchor point to me, like progressing into the next stages of my life and being like dialed in as a human as best I could, having an anchor that's greater than me. So decisions aren't rooted in what I feel is the right choice or the wrong choice, because my feelings as a human of the flesh will drive me in the wrong directions. And I realize that what's right and what's wrong doesn't typically feel to me right and wrong, because I'm an imperfect being. And that gave me a good trajectory, man. It was better for my life.
Yeah, that's extremely powerful. And going all the way back to episode 1, I mean, I talked about, what has really led me here to where, we're doing this podcast and, we're doing the coaching and consulting and all the work, but it's like, I lived that 35 years without that real base there. It's like, just like you said, I made decisions based on what I felt was good. It was like, I was given the world at 15 to kind of go figure out and navigate this whole process. And literally every decision from 15 to 35 was, is this going to make me feel good? Not even is this good or bad? Is it going to make me feel good? Very, very selfishly. So I really appreciate you sharing. I think it's an extremely powerful part. Just God works just in truly remarkable ways. You said something there right at the end of that, like, you at that point, you started to kind of question, like, who is Anthony? And I think that really kind of leads us into identity. And I know that's really sits at the base of everything that you do through your coaching, speaking, your podcast work.
Mm-hmm.
So what does identity mean?
Identity, well, it's interesting what it means and what it is.
What is it?
Yeah, no, I think it's good, actually good question. I think what it means, it's who you are, right? It's a meaning that we've put in place of like who you are as a human. Who you are is such a vast base, right? There's so much inside of that answer. Because being something is massively, important. It's are you a husband? Are you a father? Are you a dad? Are you a cousin, a brother, a colleague? Are you, a nice person in the Starbucks? Who are you, right? That's what identity, I guess, means, right? But what an identity is, it's kind of, it's a burrito of all the parts of you rolled up. It's all the mindset, habits, your productivity, it's reactions, it's the big actions, it's your disposition. It's all rolled up in one. Essentially, what I've found, and what studies will show too, is your identity is who you are and what you do when you are not consciously thinking about who you are and what you do. Because there is a conscious person that's there and doing their things. But if you think about, like, when someone cuts you off, who you are is, how do you respond to that? Do you get angry? Do you get pissed? Do you freak out? Do you not? Like, what's your disposition? If somebody gives you bad news, if somebody gives you good news, if you win something, if you lose something, like, who are you? And there's an interesting thing. We just do things throughout our day, and those things we are doing, they turn into a life we're living. I call it being and becoming. I am being someone every day. Every day I'm being somebody in an action, in a verb way, and that being is becoming someone. Because if I'm being and I go to work every day on time and I'm nice to people and people give me a job, I'm becoming the VP, the CEO. I'm becoming the likable person. If I'm being a douchebag, I have a horrible outcome. I'm becoming someone nobody likes. But no one thinks about that in the moments of it. No one has planned about how their habits and their actions and their reactions and what drives them is no one thinks about it. They just show up to life. And typically it's programmed like a computer. We'll call it identities like a computer. It's like it's your software and you're the biological computer. It's programmed by teachers and preachers and coaches and moms and dads and friends and TV and news and media. It's all programmed into us at a young age. By like 16, it's kind of there. You just operate from that. You may have some big pivots. You lose somebody, you gain something, but a lot of it's all reactive. We react to our life very, very often. We're reacting to moments in life that we didn't plan, and we have no plan of how to react. So we just go into survival mode for the rest of our lives. And so the work that I do is go say, hey, do you want something different in life? You can, there's more to it than just work on your mindset or choose to stop this. It's like, who do you want to become? Because that who you want to become, it informs everything that you do. If I want to become the guy who doesn't want to watch porn anymore, I'm going to be that human now. What does that guy do differently, right? If I want to become the amazing husband, what does that guy do differently? And now that informs my being so I can become that person.
God, I absolutely love that. It's like you have to like pull yourself out of this, meat suit and not, the unconscious habits and patterns and all that we've developed. I think you said 16 is when it's really, kind of ingrained in us, and look externally at what we are doing, but then build a plan to like, okay, this is who I want to become, but how do I actually get there? Wow. That's
Ruff, get it. Oh, I don't care, man. It's all part of the process. I got animals. And
it is, man. It is. Yeah. Just when you're running this out of your house, man, it's how it rolls.
I like it though. That's life. I think that there's got to be a beauty to the whole thing. Leave that damn thing and don't even edit it out, man.
If this thing was too perfect and polished, it'd be like, nobody wants to resonate with that. People want they want the
I did a podcast one time when the NFL came out for the Super Bowl in the San Francisco Bay Area. I did a podcast with some guys and somehow I ended up out in the city. It was my single days. I was out in the city And I was supposed to go. I did an XM radio interview. Somehow my PR person got it set up, and I'm like next to Jerry Rice and these dudes, and it's just doing my thing. And then I just ended up getting stuck out there for the week. When I say stuck, it's like I just didn't go home. I don't even know why. I was like, I'm not gonna go home. And I was staying at home with people's houses and going to weird Super Bowl parties and meeting my agent out there. It was weird. But I did a podcast outside of a Starbucks in a parking garage, and you could hear the city streets and everything. They're like, dude, we love that energy. Like it makes the podcast more listenable because we just hear life going on around you. But it was just enough to not be overwhelming and too loud, but to be a background noise. So there is something to having that life energy going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely love that. So let's get, if we can, like, let's get actionable for people.
Let's do it. I got it.
In. I guess maybe the first place to start is like, how does somebody know if they need to make an identity shift?
Do you have a dream that's bigger than what you have now? That's it. That's all you need to know. Here's the way I look at it. If you were the person who has that dream you have, you'd already have that dream. It was already there. If you were the person at a core level, the being who you're being, if you were already that human, you'd already have it. The things we have now are because of who we are, right? Whether it's a relationship I have is good or a job I have, it's been brought to our life by the way we are being, right? You become the person who has that thing. So if you have something above what you want right now, and not everybody does, I got best friends and great friends and close friends who don't have aspirations for more than they have. And they're being someone that in comparison to what I'm doing, it's far below the operational standard for what my dream is, right? They're not lesser people. They just have lesser desires. And that's beautiful because there's a joy to them because they want that thing. But if somebody's like, man, I want more, maybe I want more money or I want more freedom or I want more time, whatever it is, then you have an identity gap because there's something that you are being that's stopping you from having that. And you're completely blind to it. It's a blind spot. And if you're wondering, like, how do I know I need to make a shift? Well, there's something that you want you don't have. It's that simple.
Now, maybe this is, I think this is one of my personal flaws because I see greatness in everybody. Like when I meet somebody, when I'm around somebody, like I see well beyond the way that they're showing up. It's like I can look inside and see that you're there for more. But you said something there where like some people don't have dreams and aspirations. But at the same time, some of those people that are living without the dreams and the aspirations are complaining about their current situation. They're not really dreaming. At the same time, they're kind of complaining about their current state. So how is that a mindset shift? Is that something, when you meet them,
it's more in a mindset because the mindset here's the thing is I had a great mindset in the NFL. I had great minds. I still have a phenomenal mindset, but if I don't apply it in a place where I self-categorize or identify as that thing, it'll be useless. I can have all the tactics and tools, but if I don't believe I'm the person that should have a great business, guess what? I don't have a great business. Because when it comes time, push to shove, like I won't activate the way I need to because the root of me won't fight for what I deserve in that moment when it matters. The making the clothes, making the ass, signing that person up, hiring somebody because I don't believe, right? But if I believe and I know it's who I am, the mindset comes to play. Now there's a difference. What you're saying is interesting because there's this message that someone said to me years ago and it helped my marriage amazingly, which is you can't want more for someone than they want for themselves. And when I realized that, I was like, oh, like my best friend had an opportunity to start to take over a business that would have started him at his same salary, benefits, actually more money. And he was looking at upwards of an easy $400,000 a year he could make by taking over a business from somebody. He didn't want to take it because it wasn't his thing. And for me, I'm like, ugh, gross. What are you, huh? But he's not built for that. And I wanted it more than he did. But if I kept in that space, it would cause a separation between us because I'd judge him. I would view him differently. I'd make different statements to him. And guess what? Friendship pulls apart. There's that piece of it. Now, that's different because he's a person who's not asking for more. He's content with what he's got. So what I look at, what you're talking about, is the person who says, I want more, and all I do is complain. These people drive me insane because they're the same ones that'll go and say, hey, I want more. And, I just don't like where I'm at. I don't like my job. But every moment that they're given to change it, they don't press out hard. Or if they do look into, let's say, getting some help somewhere, they find every reason to not actually take the leap. It's like, so then stop saying it. And what I tell my son, I tell him all the time is he has these dreams. And I tell him, look, here's what's going to have to take place. You're going to be in my circle and be around him and have this conversation. One, you need to either get out of your head this dream or get into your head what it takes to get it. It's one of the two. You don't get to have both. We're going to hang out with me. Like you don't get to be around this world I'm in. Because I realize that people have dreams, and if you have this dream and you want it, damn it, you got to get inside your head what it takes. It's got to lock down to where you start realizing the statements you say are random and they're stupid statements for what you have to do. Oh, I want to write a book, but I want to read books and figure. What? You don't read books, but you want to be an author? What's the point? It doesn't make any sense. Or, man, I want to lose weight, but I don't want to work out. What are you talking about? It doesn't make any sense, right? So you got to think about, like, there's certain things you say you want it. What does it take to get that? Because when you find out what it takes to get that, and at least you get it into your head a little bit, you start understanding how you got to make that shift. But if not, get rid of the dream, man. And it's cool to get rid of the dream. There's nothing wrong with getting rid of the dream. The dream is just something you had, and maybe it's a calling that's different. But if it's just something you want, like, hey, right now I want a Snickers bar, but I probably won't want one in a couple days. That's okay. Nothing wrong, because my want has changed. It's just be aware of what the want means. And so if you want a greater life and a greater life, cool, go do something. But it's also okay to not want it, or maybe admit you don't want it enough. And that's also okay. But you got to be real, and you got to be honest with yourself of where you're at.
Yeah, I love that. You can't want more for somebody that doesn't want it
for themselves.
For themselves. I've struggled with that through relationships, through friendships, through business partnerships, just in life in general. And that's why I said I think this is like, that was personally asking that question for me. So we got the person they've identified that the dream is bigger than where they're at right now. So they see that there's this gap, keeping with the actionable steps here.
Yeah.
Where do we go? Where do we go from there?
Yeah. So I called an identity gap, and you have what's called identity walls that get in your way. There's a wall you run into that you can't get past. That's not typically tied to information, because we got information nowadays. It is not tied to, lack of support. You got this communities nowadays that are free on Facebook. It's tied to the fact that you don't see yourself as that person. So you don't climb that wall. And the wall could be launching a podcast. The wall could be asking for promotion. It could be launching the business. It's just a bunch of different things. You got a wall, but what you're feeling is the gap. Here's who I am. Here's what I have. And I want that thing. And the person I am can't get that thing yet. And you can. That's the thing, is you can get it. The way you do it by making an identity shift. You shift into that new identity. I call it closing your identity gap. If we're talking about tactics and actions, there's a method I use called the shift method. It's created from scratch, and it was really dialed in from my own life and things that we haven't even unpacked just yet. And then also, like, science and understanding psychology and neuroscience, how the brain works, and then actions and habits and all this fun stuff I've put together to realize, like, if you can do these things here, you'll do two amazing things. One, you'll achieve that goal you've been trying to achieve for a really, really long time to close that gap. But two, you become the human being who understands how to do that kind of stuff easy. Because to get that goal, it's hard to get that stuff. You're going to learn a lot about yourself, struggle with a bunch of stuff, climb a lot of walls. But when you become the person who achieves that kind of goal, that kind of stuff becomes easy. Success becomes second nature to you. And it's like, that's why some people have success, and at the end of the day, it looks easy to them. It is easy. That's who they are to do it. They feel gross if they don't do some of the things that you're struggling with doing. So who's going to win in the long run? The person who enjoys it, right? And so what happens is, over time, you have to do these different things. And what it really boils down to is, in that method, it's called See, Shift, Sustain. It's 3 processes, but it really kind of comes to a simple, basic thing of this. You got to plan, execute, and be consistent. In football, one of the things that it taught me, of many things, but we'll call it a collection of a group of stuff, was one, it taught me first how to plan. And planning is the thing that is such an incredibly overlooked aspect. People know they should do it, but they don't know how to do it. They don't actually do it. It's kind of like people buy planners with no clue how to plan. It is weird. It's like, I'm gonna buy a horse. Do you know how to ride a horse? No, but I'm gonna buy a horse. Bro, why are you gonna buy a horse? You can't even ride a horse. So, like, you got to figure out how to do this. And so what most people do is, one, they don't plan aspirationally enough. They don't have something that's a far enough plan that makes them want to go there. If somebody says, hey man, Frank, we're gonna take a trip 8 hours. What's your first question?
Where are we going?
Hell yeah. Where are we gonna go? And if I'm like, oh, we're going to go to a trailer park, bro, I'm cool. I'm not going to the I don't want to go there. But if like,
I don't got to drive 8 hours to get to a trailer park.
You know what I'm saying? Right. It's like, you might even say that too. But if you're like, we're going to go 8 hours to watch this concert with your favorite band. Oh, that's a destination I really want to go. I'm going to clear my schedule. I'm going to get everything. I'm going to get there. I want to go there. So most people, they plan just at a level that sounds good to somebody else maybe, but it's not their true aspiration, or based on their past or their past failures or their lack of self-confidence or self-belief or imposter syndrome. They don't plan a destination that they would want to be at. So guess what? You have no motivation to even plan it out properly. So you don't plan it. But then you get some people that do. Like, I know what I want to do. I want to have a business that, 6 years from now is I can sell it for $10 million. I want to be able to run a marathon. I want to be married, have 3 kids. Cool. That's your destination. Okay. How are you going to get there? I'm just going to work real hard. Oh yeah, you're gonna work real hard. Well, what's real hard to you? Because maybe your real hard is my real easy. And what's the first step? What's the second step? So what they do is they show up to their life and say, willpower, I'm gonna do it this week. I'm gonna do it. And it's like, damn, there's a lot more in that than I thought. So they overplan or underplan. They overcompensate. They do stuff, and they end up getting overwhelmed. They go to a beer or a bottle in a video game, and they just chill out. And guess what? Their life passes them by, all because they didn't understand how to plan. It's a you got to have a process for how you plan. So football taught me how to do that, strategizing and planning at a world-class level. Every single week, we're watching a new film, new guys, adjustments, planning, audible when you need to audible. Like, it's all part of the plan. No one knows how to do that. So if they have a dream, they can't, there's not even a path to get there. There's no GPS. They're walking outside saying, I hope I make it to grandma's house. Where are you going to go? I'm going to wander around real hard, right? So that's the first piece it taught me. So you got to figure out how to plan the right way. Secondly, you have to learn how to execute. And what's interesting, execution does not come down to just executing with willpower today, or executing, because, I get the information. A lot of the reasons we don't execute on the plan that we have has nothing to do with what we say out loud. Because what we say out loud makes us feel comfortable enough to tell a friend or to go to sleep at night and not hate ourselves. The real reason, we're afraid of something. We just are. There's something we're afraid of. And it doesn't come out in I'm afraid. Frank is never going to be like, I'm afraid of taking that call. We don't say that. You know what we say? Oh, man, I ran out of time. Oh, I didn't know who to call. Or, what, I meant to make a call. My schedule got busy. I got distracted. My wife came home. I don't have enough time for that right now. I don't have the money for that. I don't know if anybody's going to. It's what it comes out. Or it ends up being like, I'm afraid of failing or failing again. So it comes out in a bunch of different ways. But really, if you sat down with somebody and said, look, why haven't you called these 30 people I told you to call? Oh, I didn't know what to say. So no, you're afraid of getting a rejection. That's really what it is. Let's own up to it. Because the moment we can address it, we can actually get out of the way and execute. So most people don't execute on plans, not because of what they're saying, which is all these things that sound good in their buzzwords, but there's some kind of fear, and it's totally okay. I tell people, it's a process I teach people for like building a business. In the beginning, you get an ABC list. You pretty much have an A-level person, B-level person, and C-level person. And it's a way you progress them through, but it means you make a list and call these people. Dude, I will have people that will spend 6 weeks making excuses as to why they didn't even make the list in the first place. A month and a half that I tried to, I started it, it got deleted. Seriously, and so what you boil down to is like, dude, what's the problem? And they're like, I don't know if I want to have anybody know that I have, I'm not doing too well and I need some help. Oh, interesting. What are you afraid of? Right? There's this thing. So once you can get past and you start executing, boom, now the floodgates open. You can start doing certain things. But then here's the problem. Some people execute, and football taught me to do this. Because think about executing a plan in football. I'm running full speed at somebody else's body with no fear of pain or failure, or like, it's just, you have to do it. I could make a mistake and look stupid out here. I could have fear. I could have pain. It could actually have pain. You know what I'm saying? But you got to do it every single play. Football taught me that. Here's the strategy. Go do it in the game. If you don't do, you're going to lose the game. I got to do it, whether I feel like it or not, even if I don't have that feeling of confidence. The last piece, which is the most important piece, over time, you've heard that statement of what you consistently do is who you are, right? And that's a consistency discipline thing. What I learned in football was if you wanted to dominate someone in the game and wear them down and win, you had to be disgustingly disciplined and consistent in 2 areas. Behind the scenes, whether I ate right, got to bed that night, lifted the weights I got to lift, get my grades right, know the playbook, got the plan in place, take care of my body. You got to be disgustingly consistent in that in the background, disciplined, so that when I show up to the game, I can wear you down. So if I'm going to wear life opposition down, which is people telling me no, or, not getting the numbers I want on my marketing campaign, or not making the sales that I want, not making it close, I got to be so disgustingly consistent in the background of what I've done to hone my skill and keep on showing up that I eventually wear down the opposition. I win that game. And not enough people understand that if you just do execution and willpower it out, after a while, that willpower dies. You just don't have enough. You just, burnout, they call it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas for me, what's interesting is that what you consistently do, you become. I say what you create creates you. That planning, the execution, it's a creation process, and that's ugly and arduous. Like making a sculpture, painting a painting, making dinner, it's long, but then at the end, you weren't a person that made a sculpture, you're a sculptor. I didn't just make dinner, I'm a chef. There's a difference there. And when it's who you are, that consistency becomes easy. And it becomes enjoyable. It becomes who I am. I feel gross if I don't do the things that you're afraid of. So when there's that whole willpower thing, I don't get burned out, dude. It's who I am to do this. I am staying in alignment internally with who I am. And that's where the things that I'm doing pan out. And then all of a sudden, he's lucky. He's special. He has success. No, dude. I planned. I executed. I stayed disgustingly consistent. And then magic happened. And that's what I teach in my programs. It's not even just information. It's teaching, but here we're going to apply. I go alongside people and I show them tactically how to do all of this. Mm-hmm. And we walk with them hand by hand as they achieve something dope, at the same time become somebody dope.
I love that. Would you say that the bigger the dream, the bigger the gap from where you are and where you want to be, the more arduous, the more consistent that you're going to have to be. Like if I'm just trying to take 2 steps forward, like boom, boom, I'm there. But if that gap is monstrous, massive, like that's where the consistency is like, you're really going to have to dig deep there.
It's always going to be a gap. The thing is, the gap, what you think it is, typically isn't even as big as it really. It's always bigger. And the problem is, people will gauge whether or not they'll continue down the pathway based on how big the gap is. If it's so, for example, if you're like, well, I don't know if I feel like sitting in the car for 2 hours. There's a difference between 2 and 8 hours. You want to sit in a car for 2 hours? I could do that. You want to sit for 8? Oh, no. I'm not sitting for 8 hours, right? It's a distance. And we get in the pathway and don't realize that we're gauging things off the distance. What I choose to do is go in my head of, will I enjoy the car ride? That's it. Will I enjoy hanging out with Frank and having conversations for a few hours or however much time it is? Will I like the music? I actually have an enjoyment for spaces that I go into, that airplanes. I love working in airplanes. Cars. I love being in cars, even in traffic, because the people I'm in the car with, I probably like most of the time. I'm cool, man. 2 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, whatever. If I'm in a car, one time I got flown out for a TV show to Seattle. They wouldn't tell us where we were going. They just said, get in the car. We're going to drive to the location. They didn't tell us how far it was or where it was. And they were driving us there. Couldn't tell us. It took 8 hours. Imagine being in a car for 8 hours, not knowing it was going to be 8 hours. Bro, it was incredible. I'm telling you, I was like, what? But I had 2 people that I actually had fun hanging out with. And I was like, this is cool. And so for me, what I tell people, I tie it back to now, it's like, you have to fall in love with the journey. And the destination will make its way to you. If you don't fall in love with the journey, man, you're going to burn out, period. If you're worried about that, that means you're giving yourself the wrong driving force. You're focused on the wrong things, because what ends up happening is people get to the point of realizing how far it's going to be. And they say, oh, I don't want to do this. And then now you have to live with the person who cut it short. And you don't like that person. You don't love that person. You don't show up for that person in the future. What do? You get this whole, it's funky and it sucks, and why go after anything? And you may not come out that way. The logic may not come into your brain consciously like that, but you end up self-sabotaging, man, because you stop the train too early.
Oh, that's powerful. I have to do a slight shift here because I need to get this question asked before we run out of time. You briefly kind of mentioned it with your wife, high school sweetheart, married, slight break. So the work that I do, obviously with porn addiction, and there's a lot of betrayal trauma that we deal with, both on the male and female side. So I just want to kind of get your thought process as you were kind of navigating, making that decision of getting back with your ex-wife? Just kind of how did you process that whole decision? What did you learn about yourself, and really what can you just kind of pass on to the guys and the females that are just dealing with, relationship trauma, betrayal trauma, cheating on, just really just kind of
all that stuff.
Speak to that decision.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. This is I'll have to lay a simple foundation as best I can before we kind of answer it. But yeah, we were high school sweethearts, had 3 kids, came out of the NFL, everything was good, and then everything got real bad. I lost my identity from football as the NFL guy. I was done, and I needed to find it again. I was finding it in a gym I was building. So I'd be gone from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. and she had newborn twins and a 4-year-old, and I'm gone. And so next thing you know, separation over 9 months just easily kind of creeps in because I'm not home. I'm trying to build this business, but I'm also not making money. So I'm not supporting. It's just stressful. The house is about to go on, to foreclosure. It's just nuts. And, come to find out on a trip somewhere that she's having an affair. And for me in foster care, broke me because now my family's not intact. And that was going to be like huge issue. And it's tough, man. And for a lot of years, I got some dark bottoms. And for a lot of years, it was all her fault. How dare you? How could you? What's going on? You horrible human. I shamed her to death. Right. And then what ends up happening is I the best way I can explain it is kind of had some of these moments of like, I call it come to Jesus moments, genuinely. I had to come back to Jesus at some certain points of doing the Playboy stuff and traveling around, and it was so unfulfilling and so empty, man. Lots of people, but super lonely. And what ended up happening was I get to this point where I don't even know how it worked out the way it did, but she, on the other side of me, she had grown. At one point, I realized, you know what? As a human, as a man, I am the common denominator in all my problems. Everything going on in my life, I'm the middle of it somewhere. And so if my relationship's sucky, the business isn't good, I'm not a good father, my health is kind of off, I'm the guy involved in all those. So if I figure out what that guy's up to, and I started having some internal conversation and realizing, you know what? At the end of the day, in this marriage situation, because one of the questions was how'd the marriage end up? And I realized, she made a really crappy choice. I take nothing from that. It was a dumb decision. Like, you don't do that, right? And the way she did it was very heinous. It caused a lot of problems. It ended up with somebody not being killed, but someone being shot in the leg, like a bunch of weird stuff. Yeah, I shot someone in the leg. Different conversation for a different time. And so ended up like, hey, I'm talking crazy, right? Haywire, custody battles, all that. And when I got to the point of realizing, you know what? Anthony needed to improve. Where could he have improved in a marriage? Well, he wasn't a great husband. She made a crappy choice, but it took 2 individuals in a relationship to get to a point where she felt she even needed to make a choice like that. She shouldn't have been presented with that option, right? She shouldn't have had to even make the choice. And I had a role in that. And it really was difficult because I had to take back a little bit of pain with that power. And then the forgiveness kind of conversation happens. Like, how do you forgive someone that can do that to you? Because you just know she cheated. You don't know how and what, and there's some depth to that thing. And a lot of people are like, you're an effing idiot to do that. I was like, let's look at it this way. We were kids, 16, didn't know who the hell we were. We seriously at 16 to 3 kids and businesses and life, we didn't know who we were without each other, right? There was that weird kind of bubble. On top of that, she wasn't given the tools. If anything, it was more that she was selfish more than she was malicious. Mm-hmm. And so I can forgive someone who's being selfish because if they can wise up to it, which she eventually did. And I can forgive someone who genuinely needs to have that because I needed my kids to have a better mom, and she wasn't being that because I felt the shame was a weight that I wouldn't lift off her, and she kept living in that and medicating it away and hanging out, right? There's a lot. So I was like, my kid's in a good mom. She does have a heart. She's a great mom when she's in that space. I was like, how can I help? And it's like, you know what? Forgive her. Pull the shame off. So I get what I want, a great mom for my kids, because I didn't have that for myself in foster care. So she came to be a little bit better. Someone gave her a book. She found faith. And it was amazing, man. God brought us together 3 years later after craziness in a very interesting way that wasn't intentional. And the best way I can explain it is we showed up, together in Costa Rica on a vacation together, but not together at all. And I got to meet someone for the first time that I'd known for 16 years. And it was a very different conversation, very different ownership, very different growth, and a different perspective of what I wanted to have for my life when I'm 60 years old. I want my kids to have mom and dad in the house. And if we could do it because we wanted to do it, not because we wanted it for the kids or somebody else, we could make it happen. And there was a conversation about trying again. And we tried. And it wasn't like hop in, everything's gonna be great. We've worked and we still work. And it's a consistent process. It's a marriage, man. But there is such a rooted, deep foundation to this marriage that has 100% trust and respect and care and the ability to secede the ego when it needs to. It's a living, breathing entity that I love more than I can put words into. And so that whole thing was like understanding that she is not a perfect human. She didn't have the tools. And if I can find a way to do one thing, which is very special if you can in a relationship, most of the time one person's on one side of the table and I'm on the other side of the table, and we push the problem back and forth. It's your fault, your fault, your fault. When you can walk around the table and help by grabbing that problem and pulling it into the both of you and solving it, it's a game changer. So like we're talking about porn, right? How do you get in the same side of the table as your wife or your husband, and you both pull this problem and say, how can we help get this thing fixed, even if it's getting it fixed for you? So when you do that, man, it's a teamwork thing. You solve the problem. Now you're on the same team, and there's no, you don't even, trust issues are not a conversation I would even have in my marriage now. It doesn't exist. Like, her stepping out doesn't exist. That lack of love or lack of connection, or it doesn't exist, because there's just such a bonded, deep connection that it all changes, and it's amazing. So someone's in that space right now, you really got to spend time figuring out what is it that you need to do, who you got to be in this relationship, and what does the relationship need of you? And sometimes if it's that, it's forgiveness and helping move past it.
Yeah, that's powerful there. Thank you so much for sharing that part, and just really, I mean, that in of itself, like that little 5 minutes right there is going to help everybody. I mean, everybody's got challenges and difficulties and struggles with their relationship. So, but you said something there. You said it really comes back to your see, shift, sustain. Like you had a plan of where your life wanted to be. You said, when I'm 60, like I want this family to still be a rock. And knowing that long-term vision, that long-term plan, you were able to sustain, the difficult work. We're coming up on a hard stop here. And I just have one final question that we ask everybody at the end of every single podcast. So the title of the show is The Superhuman Life. And you briefly shared with you the genesis of it was really my own story, my own transformation, growing up without faith, growing up, struggling with addiction from the age of 15, pornography, drugs, alcohol. Like I lived a life shackled. And when I ultimately found freedom, and I got to experience like what life really feels like to be free, and knowing that I was planted on this earth for a purpose. And as long as I instill and make sure that every single day I plan to move forward closer to that vision, then I'm living a superhuman life. So one thing I ask every guest at the end of every show is, how would Anthony Trucks define living a superhuman life?
Living a superhuman life, man, just creating more good experiences than bad, man. I think life is a collection of experiences. I don't know what the purpose of the world is or the life, but what I do know we all have in common is the fact that we can have experiences. So I'd rather have more good than bad. And that's really it. It's a collection over time, man. Compound interest. So if I create more, I can do more.
Awesome. Incredible, Anthony. Well, thank you so much for your time here today. Thank you for the work that you do, for showing up, for being open, honest, transparent with everything that you're going through. I appreciate you guys. For you guys out there, make sure to check out Anthony's stuff. We're going to link all his bio and all his links down in the description notes. But for Anthony Trucks, Frank Rich, we love you guys. We'll see you next week.
Take care.